Protesters in Paraguay have stormed the Congress and set fire to the building as anger grows over moves to allow President Horacio Cartes to stand for a second term. The protests were triggered by a Senate vote behind closed doors to change the constitution, ending a one-term limit. The protesters say Paraguay's democracy is under threat. Steve Jackson reports.
Large crowds of protesters broke through barriers to enter the Congress building. To start with, they chanted and waved flags, but some began smashing windows with rocks and pickaxes before fires were lit in several parts of the building and offices were ransacked. The police responded with tear gas, water cannon and rubber bullets, and there have since been running battles around the building. An unknown number of people have been injured. President Cartes has called for calm.
A defense council set up by the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has asked the country's Supreme Court to review its decision to strip the opposition-led Congress of its powers. The request came hours after Mr. Maduro promised dialogue to end a political crisis that's led to 2 days of street protests. There's been no reaction so far from the opposition. The Chief Minister of Gibraltar, Fabian Picardo, has insisted that Spain will have no say in the future of the British overseas territory. His comment follows the publication of the EU's Brexit negotiation guidelines, which say that any deal will exclude Gibraltar unless London and Madrid strike a separate agreement. Mark Lobel reports.
The British government has moved quickly to reassure Gibraltar of its support. The Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has spoken by telephone to Mr. Picardo. At stake is control over the territory's low tax regime, airport and surrounding waters. Spain also wants to take action against its rampant tobacco smugglers. However, politicians on both sides appear to agree a flexible approach to the border is still needed, as 40% of Gibraltar's workers commute from Spain.
The authorities in Hungary are due shortly to start moving asylum seekers to detention camps near the border with Serbia. But rulings by the European Court of Human Rights against the move could delay the transfers. Nick Thorpe sent this report from the Hungarian-Serbian border.
Several hundred shipping containers stand empty in a barbed wire encampment. Asylum seekers from inside Hungary, as well as new arrivals, are supposed to be housed here. But for now, there's no sign of them. The European Court of Human Rights has ruled that keeping asylum seekers here amounts to detention, in breach of international law. And refugees and migrants in Serbia don't want to come to Hungary just to be locked up. They're seeking other routes to Europe.
This is the World News from the BBC. The Cyber Command is beginning operations in Germany today, charged with shielding the armed forces' computer and weapons systems from cyber attack. Here's our Europe regional editor, Mike Sanders.
German Defence Ministry figures suggest an urgent need for the Cyber and Information Space Command. Nearly 300,000 cyber attacks on German military computers so far this year. Based in the former West German capital Bonn, it will begin with 260 IT specialists, but it will quickly take in nearly 14,000 military and civilian personnel. Its commander, Lieutenant General Ludwig Leinholt, said the main task would be protecting military infrastructure, including computer-assisted weapons. Any offensive action would have to be approved by Parliament, just like a conventional military attack.
The organisers of the Eurovision Song Contest have threatened to ban Ukraine from future competitions unless Russia's entrant is allowed to enter the country and take part in this year's show. Last week, Ukraine banned the Russian singer Yulia Samoylova from entering the country for 3 years because of what it described as an illegal visit to Crimea, which was annexed by Russia 3 years ago. The head of the European Broadcasting Union has written to Ukraine's Prime Minister saying the ban is unacceptable and that Ukraine's public broadcaster could be excluded from future events. And a student from the Netherlands has discovered that some cheap flight deals are just too good to be true. Milan Schipper couldn't believe his luck when he managed to buy a surprisingly cheap air ticket to Sydney. Instead of landing in the heat of Australia's biggest city and rushing to the beach, the 18-year-old found himself in near blizzard conditions in the other Sydney, in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia. Airline staff helped him to book a ticket home to Amsterdam. A young British couple made the same embarrassing mistake in 2002.